You guys, welcome back to Scale with Clarity. Today I'm talking with Darmody, somebody who changed the way I show up on LinkedIn and honestly how I show up as a founder. If you're sitting in a corporate role, feeling pulled in two directions, craving more freedom but unsure how to start, this episode's for you. Liam spent nearly 20 years inside tech startups as the, quote, get it done operator, then made a pivot that still blows my mind. A CMO hired him because of how he showed up on LinkedIn, not a bullet point on his resume. Since then, he's built a business helping people use LinkedIn to create real opportunity by being more themselves, not less. In this conversation, we talk about finding your voice online when you've worn a corporate persona for years, why vulnerability is a strength, especially in the age of AI, how to quietly build your network long before you're ready to make a leap, a simple starter plan, one meaningful post a week, daily comments, and intentional connections, and letting go of vanity metrics and redefining success around the life you actually want. What I love most is Liam's reminder that opportunity tends to show up after we give people a window into who we are. If you've been waiting to feel ready, consider this your nudge to begin, imperfectly, honestly, and in your own voice. You'll find Liam on LinkedIn and his offers, both his cohorts, one-on-ones, and more, linked in the show notes. Let's jump in. Welcome to Scale with Clarity, the podcast for entrepreneurs who are building a business and a life that actually feels good. I'm Brooke Cunninger, fractional CFO, strategist, and mom of three, and I've learned that scaling isn't just about hitting revenue milestones. It's about finding alignment between your big vision and your everyday reality. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations with founders who are redefining success on their own terms. We'll talk about the pivots, the aha moments, and the tough decisions behind the scenes. Plus, the surprising ways entrepreneurship becomes the greatest personal growth journey of all. Whether you're dreaming of leaving corporate, navigating the messy middle, or trying to grow without burning out, this show is here to help you scale with more clarity, confidence, and ease. Because building a business should expand you, not deplete you. Let's scale with clarity together. I love that voice. Liam, hi, welcome.
Hi, Brooke. How's it going? Good to see you.
Great. It's so good. We talked a little bit before we started recording, but I haven't told you, I don't think, that I've thought of this podcast for about a year. It's been like a year in the works. And when I first started thinking about it, you had just come into kind of my orbit. I was in a coaching group that she brought in you as a LinkedIn expert. And I said, I need to, whenever this goes live, I need to have you on this. And for two reasons. One is LinkedIn clearly, I think, still is so underutilized, and it's been a big unlock, still is. I'm in the beginning stages of it for me from a business perspective. But the real reason, so I want to dig into all of that for all the listeners that want to hear your expertise there. But the real reason is when I first left my corporate job, it was a surprise to me. And the thing that took me the longest was figuring out who I was and I was comfortable being, because I had this kind of corporate persona. And when I started posting on LinkedIn, it didn't feel really me, but I wasn't sure what my voice was or who that was. And then I started getting into some of these coaching groups to learn how to kind of do entrepreneurial, like online business. And people there seemed so free and like way more comfortable with himself. And I was like straddling this world a little bit. So all that to say, when you came in and I was in this corporate, I was like, you can be authentically you, figure out who you are, and still be, I don't even like to use the word professional because I think sometimes it's like as a negative connotation, but you can still kind of be great in business. People can want to work with you, but it's because you are who you really are. And so that's kind of started me on this path of like, what is my voice? All that to say, I wanted to kind of start with you in that. Have you always been comfortable in that? Because when I want to reference your post today, at least I just saw that you posted with the chili peppers and just the picture of like, this is who I am. Has that always been natural to you, or has that kind of been an evolution since you've grown in your business?
Yeah, good question. It's so interesting. I think that, I know you have small kids. I have small kids. I look at kids and I think to myself, at what point do we go from being carefree, just want to have fun, just want to do the things and be ourselves, to paranoid about what everybody thinks about us and worried that somehow we're going to say something that's going to get our career ruined or something else? And I still haven't pinpointed it, maybe teenage years, I don't know. But it feels like there are so many people who are in the same boat, right? You're
Yeah.
going into an office every day, or you're not, but you're on calls with a bunch of people, and you're worried about how you're showing up, and are you being
Yep.
professional enough, and are you doing your job well enough, and is the persona that you're
Yep.
putting on effective for that role? And I have not always been that way. I've not always been super comfortable just being whoever I am, um, with people that I don't necessarily know, because I'm human like everybody else.
Yeah.
And, I had a lot of the same challenges and a lot of the same concerns. Ironically, taking a step out and starting to post content on LinkedIn is what got me more comfortable with
I
just
know.
being who I am.
It's almost like
Be-
you realize it doesn't bother you as much if you like,
right.
and people are nicer than you assume they're going to be, at least on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, like,
Absolutely they are. I mean, LinkedIn itself is an emotionally intelligent social network, and so
yeah,
I think you're going to get more support there than you would on other places on the internet. But I would say that I've spent the first 37 to 38 years of my life completely insecure about who I was and how I was showing up, and worried. And I always knew, like, I had a pretty magnetic personality. I'm wildly extroverted. I've always been somebody who loves building relationships and connections with other human beings. I think that stems from a childhood where I moved around a lot. I didn't have a ton of friends, and so that's always been a really big part of me being me. But yeah, you sort of learn that there's this bifurcation between personal
yeah,
and professional personality, and I think that the pandemic changed that a little bit in society. It started blending and blurring the lines a little bit more. And now that you've got more people entering the fractional,
yeah.
market, you've got more people going out on their own than ever before. Um, I think a lot more people are starting to be more comfortable with just owning who they are and realizing that, you can find a lot of opportunity just by being yourself and putting yourself out there. So no,
And
I've
yeah,
not always been as free to be myself as I am today. But it took going out on that ledge and being
yeah.
uncomfortable with it to actually get there.
I think it's interesting you say, because that you talk about COVID. I think that was where I didn't even realize how much I wasn't using my voice. I was very much, and you talk about where does it start? I was good in school, so you receive, like, oh, good grades, so it's like external validation. Same with the job. I got the promotions when I could, like, what does everyone else want, and kind of meet them where they are. And the pandemic totally changed that because I was working from home and my kids were homeschooled and they were in the background, and I felt this rising anxiety that I never knew I had about, like, my worlds colliding. And that's
Yeah.
the first time that I was like, whoa, like, this is why I've felt this angst for so long, because I've been trying to keep them separate. But this is like a huge, obviously, 3 kids. Like, that is like really important part of me. And we'll get to your posting too, but one of the things, as I've said, that stood out is because that's not something to hide. That's something that kind of people relate to you even more. So everyone
Yeah.
has their things. And I was in a creative space. I mean, finance is my background, but one of the industries that I worked in was media. And I was around incredibly outgoing, super creative people. And so when I thought of the spectrum of what I had to be, I thought that was where, if you lean into yourself, you have to be this kind of super flamboyant and outward, like, just like throwing your ideas. And I knew I'd never be that. But seeing that, like, what I thought is the part that I had to hide is actually what sets me apart. And a lot of people resonate with that. So,
Hmm.
and I think what you said too about once you start posting, it maybe wasn't even a fear of, like, what are people going to say? I just realized how I didn't know my voice at all. And so I
Yeah.
would start writing what worked in an email in my corporate job. And I realized it didn't feel authentic. It was like really hard. It was like the path to burnout and trying to create that content because it wasn't me. And I was still trying. And I think it was just like that eye opening experience of, like, who am I? And so that was like
Yeah.
kind of the journey too. So with that said, I want to take it back a little bit. So you kind of referred, so you were in corporate for a while too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was different kind of corporate. I spent most of my career in startups,
Hmm.
which I think also lends itself to me feeling a little bit more comfortable being who I am, because in a startup company, you're typically a little
Yeah.
bit less buttoned up
Yeah.
than, bigger organizations, Fortune 500s, et cetera. So it all depends on where you're at. But yeah, I spent the first 20 years in tech startups, before going out on my own.
Walk me through then maybe that going out on your own. Was that your choice? Has it been something that you had wanted forever, or was that kind of thrown upon you and said,
Yeah.
this is where I am now, let me make the most of it?
It's a little bit of both. I actually have kind of an interesting story there. So I've always sort of had this obsession with LinkedIn. I joined LinkedIn in 2005. In 2009, I was let go from a company and I started a consultancy called Talent Fish Consulting, where I taught people
Okay.
how to network their way into jobs, right? I basically was like, you have this massive platform. All the people who are hiring are on that platform. So instead of, applying to the job description, and just waiting for a recruiter, why don't you go find somebody that's in the department that
So
you're
you
in?
were
And
like
like,
an
way
early
early.
adopter
Yeah.
of LinkedIn.
Very, very, very early.
Okay,
Yeah.
I
And
love that.
I've always kind of thought like this is a place to make connection, a place that you can sort of bypass the standard, bureaucracy of a company. Um, but I only did that for 6 months because I was then hired by a friend of mine who was starting a new company. And that just kind of put me on this path to being in operations my entire career. I was more or less the get shit done guy for a
Yeah,
bunch of different startups, and they'd throw me at problems and I'd fix them, and then they'd throw me at the next one and I'd fix that. And that's kind of how I established myself. My career eventually sort of wound itself into sales operations and revenue operations, um, which was interesting because I was never really particularly good at math or finance. I was just kind of a good get shit done guy. I was a Swiss Army knife, and that works well in startups, not
yeah,
so much at bigger companies, right?
yeah.
Um, and I always had this thought in my mind that like I should have been in marketing. I should have been in marketing, but I didn't go into marketing. So then 2020 hits and um
What can I
I
put? Why did you always had an interest in marketing, or
yeah, no, I'm fascinated by consumer behavior. I'm
really?
fascinated by the messages that companies put out into the space for consumers to digest and what makes people tick. Like I thought when I went to school I wanted to be in psychology or a psychiatrist, but then I realized how heavy that profession
Yeah,
can be,
yeah,
and I don't want to necessarily like I'm a very empathetic human being. I don't want to just surround myself with people's misery.
yeah.
I want to help people, but I don't want to like just always be feeling
Absorb
bad
all
for
of that
being,
energy.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. Absorb
yeah.
is a great word. Um, and so, uh, I, I always kind of thought like I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done that. And I started posting content in 2020 on LinkedIn because I was, not really hanging out on many social platforms. I was spending a lot of time on the platform. I was learning a lot. I was seeing a lot of people who were posting at that time, which is far less than there are now. But nevertheless, I was enjoying it. So I started sharing content there.
Were you? And can I pause there?
Yeah,
You talk about it, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but like
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of lurkers on
yep,
LinkedIn,
hmm
meaning just they're absorbing content, not really posting more now,
yep,
as you said. You were actually frequently posting too, just like about your day, it was kind of your creative outlet. Was that?
yeah. I would say back then it was just me starting to post about things that were I thought were fascinating, right?
Mhm.
Stories about businesses, stories about tech that was coming out. Like I was sharing a lot more of just my thought process around anything. Um, to the extent that like a lot of the people who were on the platform who I'd become friends with, who largely were there because they were trying to develop business for their
Yeah.
companies, they were saying to me like, what is your, why are you here? What are you doing here? You know?
What's
And I was like,
what's your tagline that you're trying
yeah.
to like,
I
yeah.
was like, I don't know. I'm here for the vibes. They're like, the vibes? Like, what? What vibes? And I get that because back then, LinkedIn was even less popular than it is today from a user generated content standpoint.
Yeah.
So everybody who was there was a lot of those people that just knew that this was a gold mine for building a business.
Yeah.
And I used to just say, I don't know. I just like hanging out
You're
here.
like,
Right.
that doesn't resonate with
Yeah.
what LinkedIn is.
Yeah. Whatever. Um, but then in 2021, a chief marketing officer at a slightly larger technology consultancy. I mean, under 1,000 employees,
Yeah.
but much bigger than any company I'd worked at before. Reached out to me on LinkedIn and said, I'd love to interview you for a position. And so I went and I interviewed for the position. It was a RevOps position that he was looking to fill. And then through the interview process, he said, I've got this other position that I haven't really put a lot of headspace into, but I need to hire somebody to build our employer brand and our talent marketing function. We have some very aggressive hiring deadlines. Our goal is to get acquired by a bigger company, and we need to hire a ton of people. And our current recruiting team doesn't really do a lot of outbound. So we kind of need somebody with
Yeah.
like sales and process systems thinking, but also somebody who's very brand oriented and brand marketing specific. And he said, I think you'd be perfect for this. And I was like, I'm flattered. but I'm sort of confused because
My resume doesn't show any. Yeah.
I don't have the word brand or marketing on my resume, right? Other than like RevOps guy who worked cross-functionally across sales and marketing. That was it. And he's like, "Oh no, I've been following you on LinkedIn for 6 months." He's like, "If you could do what you're doing for yourself there for our company, you will crush this role." And so I said, "All right, where do I sign up?" Right? I didn't have a job description. Like I wrote the job description. Like it was,
Yeah.
um, and that was really when I first clicked that LinkedIn is a place where you can manifest serendipity
I love that saying, by the way.
without
Yep.
even knowing it, right? There's opportunity around every corner on LinkedIn, but unless you show up, it's not going to find you.
You know what I love about that too? Because I think the lesson there for others, many, but one of them is you sometimes don't know. You can't, it says create your ideal job description, especially in
Right.
the LinkedIn world. Like, who knows what that is? Because if you've never done it, but
Yep.
you were following the breadcrumbs of just what interested you. And
Yep.
let me just follow, you had said too, you kind of like the get shit done guy at the, like problem solving. You were writing about what interested you and the people. It's a big enough platform, especially on LinkedIn, but insert any platform online now, they can find you because you were putting there. And so in their mind, they're like, this is what I see your brand that you haven't even tried to craft, but it just is you, authentically you. And this is what would resonate with me. So I think I love that too. And we can get into that about like, if you follow those breadcrumbs of what interests you and you talk about it and you're interested and you're commenting and you're learning more about it, people will find you that are like, that's exactly what I need. And I feel like that is the best way to align your life to what you're really interested in versus trying to make it fit based on like what your resume says and the puzzle pieces.
Yeah, and especially now, right? Like think about the evolution of careers and technology and professions like in the last 20 years,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Back then, your resume, 2 pages max, like bullet points, black text on 12-point font.
You think that wasn't that
Don't do
long
this,
ago, but
don't
I
do that.
think it's like that feels so like ages, doesn't
It
it? Like
does.
so outdated.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It does. And it's such a one-dimensional perspective
Yep.
of who you are as a professional, but also as a person, right? And I think that, you know, you once you realize that the internet is a very big place and but it's a small world. Like it's a
Yeah.
small world, but it's a big place. And if you sort of lead with who you are and share the things that you're passionate about and sort of feed your curiosity online, you start to meet other people who are like-minded and they start to
Yeah.
find you and then you start to have conversations with them and then you build community with them. And that was really my major unlock,
Yeah.
is if you just focus less on what you do and more on who you are, the right people will find
Yeah.
you. And that, at the end of the day, is the essence of effective brand marketing,
Yeah.
right? Brand marketing is a top of funnel exercise. And your objective is to say, I'm putting this out into the world. We're trying to get these types of people to pay attention to it. So this is the message that we're sharing. The people that message resonates with will start to follow you and will start to want to learn more.
Yeah.
And the people that don't like it, there will be people who don't like it. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I would rather somebody look at my content on a platform like LinkedIn and say, you know what, uh, this guy's not for me, and just keep scrolling, than waste my time with like a call and like trying to see if we can make it work and
I totally
interviews. Like,
agree. It's
just
like
why bother?
it's like sending out, the old school way of doing it, right? When you send your resume out, it was like, make sure besides the job description, make sure you like the people you're working with. Well, how do you figure that out too? And I
Right,
love that perspective, especially from LinkedIn, is you are, that's your first, you're kind of culling the herd, like the people that aren't going to resonate with you and you don't even know it. So they're
right.
not, it's not like someone's sending you a rejection letter, like, I am not going to follow you anymore. You're just naturally attracting the people that do want to follow you and resonate with the things that you're talking about. And so that, I think, back to the beginning of our conversation, I thought it would be more of a fear and rejection and negative place. And it's more just navigating and finding, because there's millions of people. And so you're just finding your corner of that resonates with you and that wants to hear more of what you're doing and more of what you love. And that's been like a freeing and exciting thing that makes me want to lean more into what is your voice and what are you interested in? What do you want to talk about too? So,
Yeah,
um,
100%. I mean, when I stopped worrying about how people would react to what I said, and instead started focusing on building relationships and connections and
yeah,
pouring into the people who showed that they did appreciate it, that was a pivotal point for me, because I realized that there are things that are out of my control and things that are in my control. And I can build relationships with people who appreciate me for who I am. And that will turn into opportunity at some point, right? I always tell people if you give people a window into your personal world online, inevitably a select group of those people will come to your front door, and that's where opportunity knocks.
Yeah. I love
And
that.
so I think that is a big part of the mind shift that you need. And it starts by just being you, right? Like I think that's
Which
the
is
other
easier
piece.
said than done, by the way, I think too. Like,
Totally, because
right?
we're all still struggling with what does that
Yes.
actually look like,
Yes.
and professional versus
Yes.
personal, et cetera. But, for me, the idea that you're just, well, I want to take a step back because one of the other things that I think is very transformative change for me is
Uh-huh.
as you know, I spent 20 years in the DC area.
Uh-huh.
And in the DC area, what's the first thing that people ask you when you meet them at a networking event or just out and about? What's a common question people ask?
Like, where do you work? Or,
What do you do?
yeah, what do you do? Yeah.
And I moved to North Carolina, and nobody asked me what I did for like the first 6 months I was here.
Really? So I just thought, because I'm in the DC areas, and I'm like, I just thought that's just what life
That's
is.
how you meet people.
Yeah.
That's what you ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
I distinctly remember I was sitting down around a fire pit, and one of my neighbors was sitting next to me. And I was getting to know him a little bit, and he goes, "What do you like to do?"
Oh, I like
I couldn't
that.
answer the question.
Same. People would ask me
I
what my hobby is. I'm like,
I was sitting there and I was like, "What do I like to do?"
yes.
I had to like think about it because I was so used to the first question being, "What do you do?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now when I think about this for a few years later, I think to myself, like, people want to know the who behind what you do,
Yeah.
like the person behind the function and the person behind what you do. So if you lead with that, right? If you lead with,
Yeah.
these are things that fascinate me. This is something I'm curious about. This is something that I thought was interesting. People will start to relate to the personality that you're putting out there. And then they'll ask what you do. And then they might ask if you want to consider an opportunity. But if you're leading with a persona that you think is this corporate persona that you need to
Yeah.
fit into, it's not really you. It's not
No.
truly authentic.
One, it's hard to sustain. Two, it's the path
Yeah.
to burnout. And three, it makes it very transactional, which is what I have found on this platform. And I know, well, this is going to be about LinkedIn because I'm talking to you, but you can substitute other platforms, but you can find people resonate with you as you preach all the time for the personal aspect. Then
Yep.
you can figure out, you can craft whatever role around that if that's what you're looking for. How can we work together? Because people want to. And that's what I found. I mean, like, there's so much truth behind that. And I just want to double down on easier said than done. I know that because, like you said, when I was in my corporate role, I wore that identity like a badge of honor, and not knowing what my hobby was, I was like, I don't have time. Like, it was like, if I had a hobby, I was saying that I wasn't busy enough at work and like I didn't have an important enough job. And I realized, one, all we've said, like, that's the top of the brand. That's the top of the funnel, is not just for your own sanity, for your life, to figure that out, but also because that is actually what's going to set you apart in this new world where it's becoming more and more online. People are doing fractional work. They're working for different companies. Companies are pulling people in, piecemeal. You got to really figure out who you are. And then that's going to be what wants. And so I say that because easier said than done, but like you said, like sitting there being like, start figuring out what that is. Because when we get to kind of your funnel of posting content, that's been one of my hardest things, is like a window into your world. Like,
Yeah.
what is, and I also want to say that I think I overthought a hobby. I mean, now I know yours is hot the sauce, like one of your things that you said, and one of the best practices is like, put that up there, like what differentiates you. But even like being a mom or loving to travel or stuff that I thought was like, I mean, yeah, everyone has that, but that still sets you apart because there's a whole part of the world that doesn't do that or isn't into children, whatever it may be. And so that, even starting there with like the things that I knew and then trying to dial that down.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So go ahead.
Absolutely. No, go ahead.
So so you're in this role, this guy hired you for this marketing role that you never knew. That clearly you're not there anymore. So at some point you said, this isn't it. Yeah.
No. So actually we were acquired 2 years later, for a little over $1 billion, which was totally my doing. Just kidding.
I don't see that on your LinkedIn profile.
No, that's not, I don't talk about that. But yeah, we were acquired, ironically, we were acquired by a Canadian conglomerate, And the day that the day that we woke up with the acquisition announcement, I think I was the only person in the company that knew who the
Word.
company was
Because
because
from Canada.
I'm
Yeah.
Canadian. So everyone else was like, "What? Who? Tell us.
Where
Who's
did,
that?"
what
It's like,
part of the
"What?
world is this even in?
Yeah. Is this a fake acquisition?" But yeah, so we were acquired. 6 months later, I was let go, which I was fully expecting. And the company did right by me on both accounts. So I had enough of a runway where I could entertain the idea of starting my own thing if I wanted to. And I have a very loving and understanding wife who also happens to be gainfully employed.
Yep.
And so she said, you know what, like, you could go back to startups and kind of do your operations thing. You could go work in employer branding at, bigger companies where employer branding is sort of a thing, but bigger companies really aren't my bag. And she said, or you could just go do this for yourself because you've been talking about it for 10 fucking years.
Had you? So this was in your wheel. Is your family entrepreneur? Like, is it, or has it just been something that you're like, let me try and do it on my own?
No, I mean, I grew up, my dad was in the hotel industry. He was very much the like power suit, power tie, out of the house by 8 a.m., home by 8 p.m., working on Saturdays kind of guy. And so I grew up thinking that was what business was.
Yeah.
I thought I have to get out there and, work 60 hours a week, and I have to have big cars and big jobs and big desks with corner offices and all that stuff. Um, and so entrepreneurship was not really in my immediate DNA. I have a lot of entrepreneurs in my family, but directly, my mom and
Yeah.
dad were not that way. And if anything, it was probably they were more on this sort of
Risk
be
averse
careful, be
side. Yeah.
careful side,
Mhm.
right? But it was more so that I always loved helping people and
Mm.
talking through things with people, and I've always wanted to um, do something more than just what I was doing
Yeah.
at work. I really derive a ton of energy from helping other people
Same.
figure shit
Same.
out.
Same.
And so that's why I was so good in operations, because I could just get it done. But
Mhm.
like, people used to laugh at me. Like, I would walk around in the office and, I'd be like, okay, like, here's my notes for, like, here's our project plan. Like, our
Yes,
project plan
I
is
know.
this.
Yep.
And they're like, what? Like, where's my MS Teams project plan? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And where's the
And
meeting agenda that we're gonna
I
get?
was
Like,
like,
no, it's
everything's in
right
here,
here.
y'all.
We're
Like,
good.
we're moving too fast for anybody to write anything down. So yeah, I guess I just kind of always got in that mindset of I want to help people out,
Which
and
I gotta imagine. I mean, being in a startup too, like that is a risk taking world too. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but that may have set you up for that mindset of like figuring it out. I'll go out on my own.
yeah,
I've done it before in these smaller-ish startups. So and then also clearly I am in the same boat, having a spouse that is kind of, I say I'm the stock, the risky, could be high return, but also could lose us a ton. And he's the bond. He's got the corporate job that can kind of sustain it. So I don't want to minimize the fact that if you have that too, and a little bit of runway from your job, it allows you to kind of explore with less of the stress, because I know that that cuts out any creativity. I mean, when you're like, I got to do this in this set amount of time. So,
yep,
um, okay. Love that. I love that you kind of jumped out on your own. You had a supportive wife that's like, you got to do this. You are similar to me in what I know you're trying a bunch of different, you've said before, like you like exploring problem solving, figuring different things out. I have been at fault for trying to grow in LinkedIn, and like then also trying out YouTube, and then there's Instagram, and there's so many things now, and you and I have talked about Substack. There's so much coming out.
yeah.
How have you stayed consistent, and why did you choose LinkedIn? I know you were kind of an OG in it, like you said, like one of the early adopters. How has that been the thing how have you stayed with this and said, this is where I'm going to grow my following? Did you see early traction, or the writing was on the wall for you?
No, I don't think I saw early traction. I saw other people having early traction, right? Like in
Yeah.
2018, 2019. Um, Actually, the first time that I sort of woke up to the potential of the platform was in 2015. Um, and I had been at Living Social for 6 years
Hmm.
at that point. I was the 20th employee at Living Social, so I went on a crazy ride, and then
Yeah.
I went on a crazy ride down.
You
Um,
saw both sides of it.
yeah, it was. I mean,
Yeah.
I got an MBA at that company. There's no question
I
about it.
mean, yeah.
But in 2015, I had a pretty rough year. I left Living Social. I went to another startup that was definitely, not a job that was kind of senior enough for me. And I ended up, there was some shady stuff happening that I didn't know about. So I left that company, went to another company that I figured I would crush at. 3 months goes by. I was in a role that was basically a glorified sales
Yeah.
role, and I was not that. And so didn't last there, and then got another job. And so basically I went from having like 3 jobs in 10 years to 4 jobs in 1 year. And I was literally mortified, thought I was
You're
ruined.
like,
I
I've
thought my
ruined my
career was
every,
over.
yeah, there's no one's going to
Everything's
hire me
done.
now. I'm a job
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
jumper.
I might as well just like move back to Canada and live with my parents, right? Um, but
That's the level you were at that
I
point.
was super upset, right? And I think one night I had gone out and I had probably had a couple too many beers, and I wrote this really long article on LinkedIn
Yeah.
about how I felt.
Yeah.
And I woke up the next morning and was like, "Fuck, I gotta delete that." Sorry, I don't want to
No,
swear.
that's, yeah,
I,
we're
I
over
I gotta
18 here.
I gotta delete that. And then I opened LinkedIn and I had dozens of messages from people
Like,
saying,
same.
"Holy shit!
That's
Like
exactly.
that is the most vulnerable thing I've ever read. I cannot believe you put it out there." And I was like, "Well, I can't delete it now. Like they've seen it. It's out there. It's done."
People will
And
know already. Yeah.
the weird thing was people were resonating with it because they felt the same
Yeah.
way. So I didn't really do anything with that information. I just kind of like put it in the corner and was like, "All right, well, we keep going, whatever."
Yeah.
Um, and then I started to see more people posting in the feed, and I started to see more people having conversations, and I started to just really kind of enjoy the community component
Yeah.
of LinkedIn. I also think there's something to be said for the fact that everybody's name is their name.
Yeah. Yeah. No
Now they're
fake. Yeah.
verifying your identities, right? Which I think is going to be a massive problem in the future.
Hmm.
Um, and there's this self-policing mechanism on LinkedIn that keeps it a positive space
Yeah.
because most people don't want their boss or their potential client or their future employer to see them being a jackass
Yeah.
online. They save that for other places where they have like some pseudonym that they can hide
Yep.
behind. And that's really for me the thing, right? Like I want to, if I'm going to invest so much time
Yeah.
building relationships
Yeah.
online, I want them to be relationships that are real
Yeah.
with real people who are mature and emotionally intelligent and
Yeah.
think about things the way that I think about things or differently, but like know how to communicate it in a way that adults typically
Yeah.
communicate. Um, and so that was really what got me into it is just the authenticity component and the fact that there wasn't a lot of the negativity that you saw elsewhere.
I do. I agree with that. There's a lot of, we can't avoid, you and I have talked about taking off some of the social media platforms because there is a vibe that it just sucks you in. It's either a time waste, which all of them can be, but also a negative energy.
Hmm.
But the reality of the future of the world is that's how people are communicating and that's how you're connecting now. More and more people are working remote. As we've talked, we wish we could go into an office maybe one day a week. So that is there to stay. So I agree. If you can surround and pick a place that is generally positive or at least has constructive discourse as opposed to kind of some of the other platforms that just are just really negative. I agree. And that's been my my take on it too since I've been on there, and it's really interesting too, and I feel even crazy saying it now, like my husband who still again in his corporate job and he has actual coworkers, and I talk about my friends on LinkedIn and it feels
Yeah.
so like I'm one of those kids that like is like online dating with like friends, but I'm like that's where I'm meeting people and really deeply resonating and actually people that are doing the same thing as me and like learning from each other. And so it's like still sounds crazy for me to say, but I'm like I don't know what to tell you. That's where we met, and that's like my closest
Yeah.
coworker group now,
Yeah.
honestly.
Totally. I mean, I met my wife on eHarmony. She was the only person I went on a date
Yeah.
with. I was the only person she went on a date with. She was only there to like help a friend out, kind of thing. If you can meet your spouse online, you can meet a client, a business
Yes.
partner, a
Yes.
friend, right?
Yes.
It's even less weird to do it that way because there's not as much at stake. And so I think like people need to sort of start, I think people are shifting their mindset and
Yeah.
realizing like you can actually build real connections with people online, but only if you show up,
Yeah.
And so that's my sort of,
Uh,
I think one of the things I'm meant to do is help people realize that.
I love that. And so let's dig into that for a minute because showing up online. So I want to talk to the person that is that's in a corporate job, has had a whole
Yep.
career there. We've had with the new administration and tariffs and everything, there's a lot of companies that are laying off now. And the people I talk to in that camp fall into two. One is would love to leave, but can't. They're not there yet. Two, they are facing layoffs, and maybe it's not their own choice, but they've got to figure out what to do. So those people that are kind of still in their world, haven't really kind of where you were. What's my path? Am I going to go out on my own? Am I going to do my thing? what maybe are 2 or 3 things they can think about in LinkedIn? They haven't been active. They've been what we've called the lurkers, from, just on there, but only if they need to like find a job.
Yeah. Um, so the thing that I think a lot of people underestimate about LinkedIn is that you can do a lot of things on the sly
Yeah.
on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this before. Content is just one piece
Yeah.
of the platform. And to me, it's not even the most important piece. The most important piece is the network that you're building and
Yeah.
the conversations that you're having. And so if you are somebody who is still in a role at a company where you don't fully feel like, okay, if I post something, they're going to think I'm looking for a job.
Yeah.
So you're nervous about that. That's totally fine. What you should be doing is finding people who are potentially doing something you want to be doing and
Yeah.
connect with them. Or you find somebody that's in your industry that, you might find another opportunity from.
Yep.
You engage with some of their content, you shoot them DMs, you send them connection requests. The honest truth is that if you can start building your network when you're 2 years away from starting something on your own, you're far ahead of most people. Most people, they just jump and then they start building
Yeah.
their network.
Yeah.
If you are thinking that, you might need to someday do this, whether it's because you're, dealing with a layoff or you just feel like you're not sure about the certainty of your position, or you just want to
Yeah.
start laying that groundwork
Yeah.
now, start laying the foundation. And so I would say if you really want to make the most of this platform, add anywhere from 10 to 100 people per week to your network
Yeah.
that, are showing up on the platform, that are having conversations, that are sharing content that you find interesting. If you're talking about finance professionals and operations professionals, there is a massive community of
Yeah.
people on LinkedIn who talk about RevOps and finance.
Yep.
RevOps especially,
Yeah.
like, because they're mostly like somewhat sales adjacent, so they have similar personalities sometimes.
Yeah.
And you can engage with their content, and you can engage with content that is very specific to your subject
Yeah.
matter. And then your boss is not necessarily going to worry because they're like, oh, look, Brooke shared
Talking
this
about what
article.
she's doing anyways, Yeah.
I've had people, when I was working at companies, I would sometimes bring people's posts into meetings and be like, look at this.
Yeah.
And so reacted to this. That's why I saw it.
Yeah.
And it would be a cause for conversation about how to take an approach to sales execution or go-to-market
Yeah.
strategy. So you almost could be helping your
Yeah.
existing position as well as planning for the future exit
Yeah.
just by doing those two things.
Yeah.
You don't have to post anything at all if you don't want to. You just spend time connecting with the people that you think might be interesting and engaging with content that you find interesting. And that's it.
I
And then
love
you don't have to really worry.
I love that. Okay. And you're a prime example of that. That's how you got your own, not even looking, but a job offer in a totally different function, because you were
Yeah.
just posting about what interested you. The post is not, hey, I'm looking for a job, open for works around your
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
profile. And I love that too, because I've actually had people reach out to me. I was posting about fractional work. There are people that I used to work with have full-time jobs, but just in DMs and saying, I just want to hear more about how that works. And
Nice.
nobody knows that. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing. So, okay, I love that. So for the people that are still in the job, just uncertain about the future, just in general, just grow your network like you would within your company. And just think about this as an extension times 100 of whatever company you're working out, because that's what you're naturally doing. And that's what we've all been taught, make sure you know a lot of people within your company. And so that your name pops up for if it's that times 100. And you're just growing your name out there. And like you said, making connections and commenting on things that interest you. What about for
Yep.
the person that now has left and they are just trying to start? There's such a negative connotation, rightfully so, around cold DMs and outreach. And so, you don't have any clients yet. You're like, I've just gone out on my own. What's your feedback for the top 3 things that they should start doing if leveraging LinkedIn?
So in that scenario, I think you continue to add people to your network. It might be a little bit different because you're starting to think about people from a client perspective
Yeah.
versus, an industry perspective. So a CEO is probably going to hire a fractional CFO or COO. So you want to be connecting with CEOs. You want to be thinking about the size of the company
Yeah.
that you might want to go and work on a project with. And so you're finding people who are leading companies that size.
Yeah.
You're being a lot more intentional about who you're adding to your network. You're posting.
Yeah.
I think this is uncomfortable, right? But you I've always said to anybody that I talk to, if you are looking to make a change in what you're doing, the best way to be able to do it is to talk about it with your network and
Yeah.
get their support. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of people really struggle with this. The idea that you're going to go to LinkedIn and say, I'm no longer working at this company, whether you say it's from a layoff or whether you just say I left, doesn't, whatever. But the fact that you're putting that out there into the world, and most people are mortified by that prospect.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
supposed to just admit that I got canned? Like, well, yes, but the reason that that is no longer as bad as it once was or as scary as it once was is because we've all been through like a
Everyone. Yeah.
crazy ringer as an economy. In the last 5 years, we have seen professional and personal worlds blend. We have seen the value of fractional employment increase, almost 10x,
Yep.
right? Like I saw your post yesterday on LinkedIn, and I actually went to Perplexity to ask about the increase in fractionals over the course of the last
What's the,
5 years.
yeah.
I can't remember. I'll send it to you, but it just reminded me I have to put it on your
That's,
post. But it was something like 10x
yeah.
the amount that was there 5 years
The
ago, right?
industry's, yeah, we could, yeah, that's another, that's
And
another podcast episode.
yeah,
Yes.
right. And so there's a whole lot of upside to just putting out there that you're going to be doing this thing, and
Yep.
you could really use your network's help introducing you to people, getting people
Yeah.
started, uh, because again, people want to support you,
Yeah.
generally speaking.
Yeah.
I think the assumption that, oh, if I acknowledge that I'm no longer at the company, no one's going to talk to me.
No.
The opposite is true. They're like, holy shit, good for you. How can I help?
A
And that is what makes that platform so special and so powerful.
two things to add to that, because I've seen it play out two ways. One is your existing network that just wants not, they've known you, they've worked with you personally. They do want the best, especially when you're coming across as like authentic and like, listen, this is what this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying. People
Yep.
are naturally for the most part, good people and want to help you in that. The second way I've seen it play out is people that don't know you, but they're in your network, you've connected with them. I actually saw some feedback and like stats around the most successful, advisors, whatever, insert whatever your role is, companies, you don't learn as much in that. And so the thing that companies want is how you're going to help them. Just because you did great at a different company and you put them to exit or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's what you learn from like you talked about with your, like the rise and the fall, you learn way more. And then here's how I'm going to stop this from happening with you guys. Like there is so much, and if you just own that, because the assumption used to be that it was something you personally, that's why it would
Right.
left it. And now it's like, no, there is ups and downs. So you've got to ride both sides. Otherwise, like you haven't learned anything. And so I love putting that out there. And with that spin, companies need that. Like, how do I avoid that in the future? How did you deal with that issue when that happened? And now that you've been let go or the company sold, and now like, how do we go through that at the same thing? So I love just kind of unapologetically owning that and being vulnerable in it. And which is, to your point, scary and not what we're used to, but to your example of your post, that's what people resonate with, and it's going to set you apart from everyone else that's out there.
Vulnerability is perceived as a weakness, but it's the opposite.
You know what?
Right?
Sorry, I am interrupting you, but I think even more so now that AI is kind of growing and so much, it's what makes us more human, and people even subconsciously are wanting to connect with that even more. And so
100%.
it's what's setting us apart, from a lot of the content that isn't vulnerable. It's not naturally human. And so by doing that and not even having a perfect post like written like people resonate with that, because it's like, this is you, and this is you really putting yourself out there. And I think that's going to continue to be more so the case as we move forward.
100%.
Okay. I love that. I love all that. So continue to connect. If you've just gone out on your own, continue to post. Can you talk through briefly, or however long, you have a posting strategy, especially if you've just kind of like, what are the types of content that you should be posting, and maybe the cadence if you're just starting out, how much you want to be doing?
So I post entirely too much on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of the only social platforms that actually does sort of tell you, like, we only really want you to post like 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to be posting every hour like on TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually ignore all that advice and post more because I just love creating content. But my recommendation to people is, share. Your content strategy should be dictated by what you feel most comfortable doing for the longest period of
Yeah.
time as
That you can
possible.
sustain. Yeah.
So there are some people who are like, I'm going to go all in on LinkedIn, and they post every single day for 30 days, and then they're spent. And they're like, that was impossible, and I didn't see enough benefit, or, I don't know how to keep going. So start with, if you've never posted before, start with one post a week,
Yeah.
and then spend the rest of the time that you spend on the platform networking with other people, engaging with other people's
Yeah.
content, getting yourselves into other conversations that other people who are more comfortable posting, who have maybe bigger followings,
Mm-hmm.
are putting out there, because then you sort of get introduced to their network
Yeah.
through your commentary on their content.
Yeah.
That's an easier way to go about it. Um, but my approach is about 60% of my content is typically geared towards sales and marketing of my business,
Mm-hmm.
right? It talks about what I do, why I do it, who I do it for, why you should think of me as a solution partner. The second bucket is what I call my fascination bucket. It's like 30% of my content. And that's, the ghost pepper post.
Yeah.
That's the posts about,
Like AI now, you're doing a lot more, right?
cryptocurrency and AI, like all, did tech gadgets, right? Like my Meta AI glasses, like
Yeah.
all these things that I love and I buy and I geek out over in the comfort of my home. I want to share that with people on
Yeah.
my network. And the reason that the fascination piece is so important is because there will inevitably be a majority of your network that doesn't hire you, or doesn't buy anything from you, but they have networks. And if they engage with your content, their
Yeah.
networks will see your
Yeah.
content. And that is the ripple effect that happens
Yeah.
on LinkedIn more than other platforms.
That's actually what's growing your network, is people are
100%.
relating with your fascination too. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the last one is that vulnerability piece. It's the window into your personal
Yeah.
world. It's the stuff that's a little bit more uncomfortable to post because it's emotionally raw and a little bit more vulnerable. This is my weight loss journey, right? Going from
Yeah.
350 pounds to 300 pounds, and I still have more to lose. But like, I'll be damned if me posting about it on LinkedIn hasn't helped me stay motivated,
Yeah.
right? Because people
Yeah.
are rooting for me.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about being a founder for the first time. And there are some people who would say, well, you don't want to let them know that you're insecure, that you're scared, that you're terrified. I'm like, why not? Like,
Yeah.
it's my reality.
Yeah.
It's my truth. And I want to share my truth with people so that if they're feeling it too, they can relate to it. I talk about parenting, right? I talk about marriage.
Yeah.
Like, these are all things that professionals have in
Yeah.
their lives.
Yeah.
And this idea that we're supposed to just like not talk about any of it if we're being our professional, but on the personal side, everything's over here. Like, I think that's just stupid,
Yeah.
right? We're one person doing multiple things,
Yeah.
and the professional focus and the personal focus, there's just different times of day and days of the week. It's not really anything beyond that.
That's what we're kind of trying to break down, the boundaries that used to be between work and then your personal life, because to your point, it's all one. And that's actually what makes you your personal brand versus like this crafted business, company brand that maybe,
Exactly.
businesses build. So you are a whole person. And I love that. And so whatever online world, wherever you're, and honestly, that's the truth with, if you're going to an in-person networking thing too, people are meeting the holistic you. And so you're just bringing that online and kind of sharing whatever energy you may have in that day
That's right.
with
Yeah,
some
totally.
dedication. Okay, last question for you is
Sure.
we've talked a lot about being authentic, being you. Is there any stay away froms with LinkedIn? Like, have you noticed it, like this is like not working there? Like this is something you should stay away from, or is it just really lean into you as what you are?
Um, I mean, I think some of the stay away froms, yeah, there's definitely, anytime you start posting on social media, vanity metrics come into play.
Yeah.
You start to obsess with impressions. You start to
Yeah.
obsess with engagement. You see all these people who are further down the line than you, who are getting all this attention, and you're like, well, why don't I get any of that? But it's like that image that you see where like you look at an iceberg and it's like, well, the iceberg is above water here, but like underneath there's a whole bunch of other stuff
So
that's
much.
happened. So people are ahead of you because they've put in more time, and you have to try and not to compare yourself to
Yeah.
other people, because that will kill you, right?
Yeah.
Like, comparison is the thief of joy. I struggle with it daily,
I
right?
know.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I remove people from my feed all the time because I'm like, this is just negative energy. This is a comparison thing. And that's not something I like to admit, because it's a weakness, a mental weakness on my part, but I'm doing it anyways, right?
No.
Um, I think the other thing is, you need to keep overthinking in check. People are so hard on themselves. We are,
Yeah.
as human beings, we are so hard on ourselves. And one of the most powerful books I've ever read is a book called Self-Compassion by
Mhm.
Kristen Neff.
Oh.
I read it in 2015 when I had that year that just kicked the shit out of me. And the biggest takeaway from it was, when somebody comes to you with a problem and they are feeling down about themselves, your natural inclination is typically to make them feel better and lift them up.
Yeah.
But when you start beating yourself up mentally, you are the first person to
It's so
continue
true.
beating
It's
yourself,
so
right?
true. Yeah.
You don't just
Yeah.
step back and say, "Hey man, why are you giving yourself so much shit?" Right? And that is on social media, that problem, that internal struggle is amplified 10x
Yeah.
because you are surrounded by other people who are just putting everything that they're doing in your face,
Yeah.
and you start to get really nervous and anxious and whatever. I would say if you are literally interested in building a presence online, a personal brand on LinkedIn or anywhere, you have to be prepared to post 6 months on a weekly basis with zero engagement
Ride the highs
and
and
just
lows that will come
be
in. Yeah.
be comfortable, you don't have to be comfortable, but you have to be confident that if you're putting in the work consistently and you're adding people to
Yeah.
your network who are, potentially somebody that you could work with, good things will happen, right?
Yeah.
If you do all those things. But like anything else, if you're not doing those things, it won't happen. And
Yeah.
so you have to kind of understand what your objective is, how to best get to it, and try to let that voice in your head sort of stay away.
Thank
Just
you.
mute it. You know
Thank
what I
you.
mean? Put
I
put
do.
duct tape over its
I
mouth.
do. And this is coming from a finance person, but I always say I have to remind myself almost daily, maybe even hourly, I'm redefining what success is for me. And so it used to be the title and the job. It was the salary, and what is
Yeah.
my KPI, my key, what is my success metric? It's really hard because you want some hardcore data like impressions or dollars earned or follower count to show you that you're closer to that life that you want to live. But
Yep.
the whole reason all of us that I know that have gone out on their own is for more flexibility and more time with your kids or more to do the hobbies that you love or to travel or to be able to work from wherever. And if I can get back to that and measure that, I'm light years ahead of where I could have even imagined. And so, but it's reminding myself of that too, versus the KPIs that, LinkedIn will show you or any other social media or your P&L, when you go out on your
Yeah.
own. So
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that. It's like, here's what you're going to try and stay away from, but turn towards like really what is success to you and really why are you leaving and remember why you're unhappy or why you didn't want to and what are you trying to go after now. And so I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more.
Totally.
Um,
And surround yourself with people. Like entrepreneurship is the loneliest
yes.
journey
Yes.
that you could be on,
Yeah.
right? It's me in my office with my hot sauces and my hats,
I
and like
totally
that's
agree.
it.
I
And my
totally,
wife's upstairs in meetings all day long, and like I can't bend her ear about it all
no,
day, and I don't want to. I don't want to burden her with
I,
that.
I
So
agree.
find people who can relate.
I agree. That's it. Thank you. I want to end on that too, because even my husband, who's a super most supportive, it's a different world too when you're in
Yeah.
corporate life. And so me wanting to bounce off ideas or what, lead magnet are you using or how are you posting or here's what I think my new ideal customer is, that he has his own world. So if you can
Yeah.
find people that are in it, which is also why LinkedIn has resonated with me because there's so many people there that are doing the same thing and posting about it, the highs and lows and what they're trying. And so that's super key. So on that note, in building your community, how can people find you? I have been, and I'll just put a note, in several of your courses or one-on-ones and been able to, it's not only eye-opening as people have heard the last hour of us talking, but it gives me hope in a way, I guess, just excitement that there's so much potential. There's so much potential and you just don't even know the details that you could go into or the way that you can unlock that potential. So how can they find you? How can they work more with you? What do you have out there?
Yeah, there are 4 Liam Darmodys on LinkedIn. There's
Which is
only
crazy. It's like,
yeah.
okay.
There's only one in North America, so that's me.
Okay, fine.
I'm pretty hard to miss. And
I'll link to the right
um,
one in the show
you
notes.
can find me there. Actually, ironically enough, I've met the one who was from Sydney in 2013.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'll send you the picture from
Was that
Facebook.
through a LinkedIn connection? And then they're
No,
like,
it
no,
was Facebook at the time,
oh,
but like that whole global social networking thing has always been a
crazy.
thing for me.
Yeah.
My website's liamsbrandstand.com. I have a cohort. I have one-to-one coaching, and I'm going to be launching a community at some point in the near future.
There you
So
go.
that is how you can find me.
Awesome. I'll put all that in the show notes. Thank you. Thank you for spending the time. I think it's just, like I've said, it's a whole world out there. It's new, it's uncomfortable, but there's so much potential. And there's so many people like you, Liam, who have done it before, have showed you how you can be really authentic and had success in that too. So don't stop yourself, I guess would be my lasting message, is like from fear. There's so much potential out there. You just got to find what resonates with you and start doing the uncomfortable, which is like putting yourself out there a little more online. So thank
Yep.
you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and thank you for going first and showing us that like it is possible and we can do this all. So
You're
thank you
very
for your
welcome.
time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Brooke.
Thanks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Scale with Clarity. If it sparked something for you and you're wondering what your next step might look like outside of corporate, I created a free tool called the Clarity Compass. It's designed to help you uncover your strengths and start mapping what an aligned business could look like. You can download it at the link in the show notes. And if you'd like more personalized support, I also offer one-on-one coaching to help you design and build a solopreneur path that fits your life. And until next time, thanks so much for listening. Be sure to tune back in for more stories and conversations that I hope inspire and guide you on your own journey.